everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. My guest on this week's podcast is Chris Hauty, the former Hollywood screenwriter and now best-selling author. You know Chris from the thriller novels he's written that feature former White House intern turned intelligence agent Hayley Chill. Chris's new book is called Dead Ringer, and in it, he goes into the world of conspiracies that surround the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Now, we've all heard the theories. Lee Harvey Oswald did it. The man on the grassy knoll fired a shot. The mafia did it. The CIA killed him. The Cubans did it. All of that is the backdrop for a really fun read set in current day, and an ending where Chris adds yet another possibility to that JFK story. And Chris Hauty joins us from his home in California. Chris, appreciate your time. Welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Hey, John, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on this. You have crafted a really fun read, and I've read a lot of thrillers and done a lot of interviews with authors. I did not see the ending coming, so kudos to you for a well-hidden last couple of chapters.
Well, you know, that speaks to exactly what my original goal, and when people ask me why I chose to write this and how I came about starting it, it was precisely to come up with an ending and resolution to what I think is probably America's, the mother of all mysteries, our national mystery of who killed JFK. And, you know, we all have heard the standard conspiracy theories about that. And I wanted to come up with one that I had not heard before and then write a book that supported it.
Well, you did a tremendous job. Were you a student of the conspiracy theories? Were you a student of the JFK lore, I guess, as it was before you started?
Well, you know, I think I was in first grade when in 1963, and I remember the exact moment that I was told that the president had been shot. And so it's something that certainly, my generation has grown up with, and there's been an ebb and flow of interest in the topic, and my own interest and fascination with it followed the same, levels. I think what got it going again originally was Oliver Stone's, great movie JFK, and I think that it reignited a lot of the interest that had died out in the 70s and 80s. And then, so to answer your question, yeah, to some extent, but I didn't really do the deep dive until 2020. And what kind of got me going on this book was Bob Dylan's 18-minute epic-long song, Murder Most Foul. And that was, that was a real shot out of the dark, I think, both stylistically, and we hadn't heard from Mr. Dylan in some time. And so hearing that song really kind of reignited my fascination with the time and the conspiracies and the ethos and the emotions of that event. And I was just beginning to cast about for a new idea to start a new book, and that's how I fell into it. So with researching the book, I can't say that I read all 40,000 titles that have probably been written about JFK's assassination, but I read a good stack of them. Yeah. And became at least a pupil, if not a student or expert on the topic.
And so I guess, when they released the thousands of documents, I guess in 2017, what I was going to ask you, and you've already answered my first question, is why did you want to tackle it? But, how did you decide which parts of the conspiracy to include? Because really, you could have gone down a rabbit hole here and done a book twice the size if you really wanted to. So I guess, did it all kind of just fit your plan?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head. There's no shortage of lore and iconography and theories and weird little side tangents into the story. I mean, they're just And that was one of the reasons why I was attracted to it. That was just like, you're not going to run out of material. And so it was really kind of focusing on one book, James Douglas's JFK and the Unspeakable. That book kind of provided a blueprint of what I thought could be a possible way in. And, you know, I'm not going to obviously reveal any spoilers here, but it provided an idea for who could be behind the conspiracy. You know, I didn't want to do the Cubans. I didn't want to do the mafia. I didn't want to do the CIA, all the ones that we've heard before. And there was a line of reasoning in that book, in JFK and the Unspeakable. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that book puts forth the theory that JFK got in hot water with whatever, you know, hidden powers that were by appeasing the Soviets after the Bay of Pigs. He kind of pulled his punches and started negotiating with Khrushchev and started actually executed some executive orders to withdraw from Vietnam, and that put him in trouble. And so it was really that kind of general idea of what was behind an idea to remove JFK from the presidency that got me going.
Well, Brad Thor, and I've interviewed Brad several times, and he calls his thrillers faction, where the reader, in his mind, what he wants to try to do is make it so that the reader can't tell where fact ends and fiction begins. And with all the conspiracy lore, I guess you probably had to walk that same kind of a line as well, correct?
Yeah, I took about maybe 4 or 5 different, some of them well-known mysteries, some of them not so well-known mysteries. Any buff will recognize all of these mysteries that haven't been resolved, that have kept the conspiracy theories alive. You know, for instance, the questions about where Oswald's missing, I think it was 72 hours in Mexico City. Like, there's a lot known about Oswald's visit to Mexico City, and the fact that he went to he went to the Soviet embassy, he went to the Cuban embassy. He was trying to get to the Soviet Union through Cuba. But then there were about 72 hours. I might be getting the number of hours wrong, but it was something like that. No one knows what he was doing or where he was. And so I provide an answer to that. I come up, that's where Brad's faction comes in. It's like, you know, I'm taking historical known fact and filling in some of the missing details.
But I think that's the cool part of it. You know, I think the reader can then decide for themselves if they're going to be entertained, intrigued, more mystery added. I think that is part of what I really liked about Dead Ringer, is that you added some material there. You added some material that I think gives the reader an opportunity to even surmise a little bit more beyond what Chris has put on the pages to me.
Yeah, and John, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is provide that entertainment and hopefully inspire a curiosity in the reader to dig into some of this lore themselves and see what they can make of it. There will never be the definitive answer to what is the ultimate mystery, and I provide one that I hope will like sort of roll back everyone's socks a little bit and shock them. It's not an attempt to provide what is the answers.
Right. You're not trying to go into the Library of Congress here. You're just trying to entertain readers.
Exactly. It's a little bit. I think about it in terms of what Quentin Tarantino did with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, he takes a historical incident and sort of makes it infuses his own characters into it and changes history a little bit and hopefully gets you, both entertained and interested in that time and bit of history.
All right, adding to the mystery, I'm not going to try to give everything away here, but when readers pick up the book and when they look at the chapters, underneath the numbers, there's a series of letters, and you explain it as you go along. Are you ever going to give us fans the idea of where to go to decipher what you've put underneath those numbers?
Well, I could, but those numbers are definitely the ciphered. It's a how can I put this? No one's asked me this yet. It's a historical document,
Right.
and that definitely relates to the story at hand. And so I was able to encode that language by using a cipher machine. That's all I can say right now.
Well, maybe Hayley Chill will give us an answer in one of the future books, I'm hoping anyway, because I want to know what that means.
Maybe in a sequel I can get to that part.
Because I want to know what it means. I was following along and I saw it, and I just had cataract surgery on my right eye. My left eye's coming up in 10 days, and I thought, am I seeing something here underneath this? Am I seeing? And then all of a sudden I find out at the end, you tell everybody, it's like, no, my eye's not as bad as I thought it was here. He's actually doing something on purpose.
Yeah, it was very late in the game, long after the manuscript was already finished and we were going into production. And I had that idea. I really don't know where it came from. I think what it was is that the book designer had originally underscored the chapter titles with X's, and they were somewhat fainter than the typeface and the chapter number. And I liked the look of it, but I thought, like, what a perfect opportunity to like add another Easter egg or another level of intrigue and suspense in a very physical way to the book.
Well, you hooked me like a blue marlin in the ocean. I was hooked, and I wanted to find out what they are. You were a screenwriter for many years. Chris, what got you to want to change and devote your career to then writing thriller novels?
Well, that's an excellent question. I was a screenwriter and, still a card-carrying member of the Writers Guild of America. But I devote all of my time now to book writing. We could do a whole podcast on this one, John.
Right.
The movie business, it's no secret to say that it's changed quite a bit, and the kinds of stories that they're telling have changed radically. And the main reason for that is the demise of home video, and so the studios had to replace that income with something else. So they went to the foreign markets, and that's why the nature of movies and their stories that they tell and the characters that they depict have changed from people that you and I might recognize or talk to in our everyday lives to superheroes and toasters and cartoon characters.
Yeah.
And the stories I want to tell are about, the former, the people that you might meet in your everyday life, real human beings. And so, I was having lunch with another screenwriter, and we were lamenting the kind of the state of the industry. This was probably back in 2017 or so, and he had told me that he had taken one of his old screenplays that he didn't sell and was turning it into a book, into a novel, and the notion had never occurred to me at all. And I was still working as a screenwriter and making. I was doing sniper sequels for the Sniper series, and so I thought I would give that a try, and really with no expectations whatsoever. And after 2 days of writing essentially my first book, I thought this was pretty great. Just a whole different, just a a lot more freedom than I had as a writer in Hollywood. And lo and behold, about a year later or 10 months later, I sold that book for quite a bit of money, and that was Deep State. And I've never looked back since. So it was really just kind of a desire to have more freedom as a writer than I was enjoying in Hollywood.
With story creation, though, is it the genesis of a story can become a screenplay, a genesis of a story can become a novel? Do you expand one to make the other? I mean, I get how you went about it, but for those of us, I write in little 30-second or 2-minute clips on a nightly newscast every night. So give us pull back that layer of that onion and tell us how you go about turning one into the other.
Well, with that first one, it was really a matter of just paging through the screenplay that I hadn't sold, that had attracted a lot of interest, but people in Hollywood were shied away from it because it was somewhat political. I mean, of course, if it's called Deep State, it's going to be a little political. Mm-hmm. So it was really just a matter of, like having the first scene takes place in an Army base in Texas, and just kind of expanding that into a more full and richer scene. The process of, since then is weirdly not that different. I think after, over 3 decades of working as a Hollywood screenwriter, I still kind of think and create the same way. Mm-hmm. Sort of the ideas for a story, the ideas for characters, it just is not that different from when I was writing screenplays. It's really, and even outlining and creating the story, this similar process, and that's kind of one of the more laborious processes, aspects of the entire process. It really, where it becomes a wildly different endeavor is when I sit down to start actually writing either a screenplay or the manuscript. Mm-hmm. But the sort of all that early spade work is kind of the same thing.
Well, that first thriller, Deep State, got some rave reviews, New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice of Barry Award nominee. All these accolades come in, Chris. Your first novel, was it a yay, I've got it, or was it, uh-oh, I've got to do it all over again for book 2? Which one took over?
Well, it was more yay than nay, that's for sure. I mean, I've never had writer's block, knock wood, and what was funny is that when I wrote Deep State, I really didn't understand the publishing world. I didn't know what all the rules were about writing them or the business of writing them. And so when we got a literary agent fairly easily, and that agent sent it to my current editor, Emily Bestselling, and Emily read about half of the book and emailed my agent and said, "Loving this. Does he, what's his idea for the next one?" And I was like, that was maybe the uh-oh moment, because I didn't even know I had written a series or initiated a series. I didn't know that's what it was all about, and that I was supposed to, already be working on the next one, let alone, not even have a clue about it. But again, after over 3 decades of Hollywood screenwriting and raising a family and supporting a family and sending those kids to school and buying a house, you kind of learn how to be, you got to be good on your feet, and you can't waste a lot of time. There's more business and show business than show. So, I just got busy and came up with an idea. And so it's really been, John, it's been a real blessing to have found this new way to express myself and a new writing business, because even since 2017, when I made that transition from screenwriter to writing books, it's only gotten about 1,000% harder for my Hollywood brethren.
Right.
So I consider myself very lucky.
Like many others, I've enjoyed all of the Hayley Chill books. When might we see another one? I know, again, we appreciate the exit off the Chris Hauty highway with Dead Ringer, but when are we going to see another Hayley Chill book?
Well, it really kind of depends. I mean, of course, we're trying to get some interest in Hollywood to do either a film or TV adaptation of the books. I'm sort of waiting to see how that pans out before I think about restarting that series. I feel like her arc over those 4 books was pretty. I wouldn't say it was finished, but there was a completed nature to her inner struggles, and I felt like I left her in a really good place to kind of pick up and resume her work that we've seen her undertake in the series. So it's a possibility, but I've been working on another standalone since the completion of Dead Ringer that is not a Hayley Chill book. It's briefly, it's set. I have a little, after doing Dead Ringer, I got a little bit of JFK on the brain and that time period. Of course, Dead Ringer is set in present day. So this new book is set actually during the Cuban Missile Crisis at Guantanamo Bay. So a real pressure cooker situation. I mean, that was literally, quite literally, ground zero of the Cuban Missile Crisis, under extreme threat by Soviet artillery batteries that were in the hills surrounding the base. And so this is a story, not so much about the Cuban Missile Crisis, that's really just the backdrop to provide the sort of outside tension. It's actually a serial killer story about 2 naval investigators, civilian agents from the Office of Naval Investigations who are investigating these murders on the base right when the thing gets shut down because of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Well, you mentioned a second ago about the possibility of any kind of movie or streaming series. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would think that Lee Child's character, Jack Reacher, and the success of that in the streaming world, Jack Carr's characters having the streaming series, has that really opened the door to other authors' characters possibly following the same lead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll all see those examples, and The Gray Man is another one.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's a limited bandwidth in Hollywood, so it's a little bit of a catch-22. They want to see a certain level of interest in the source material before Hollywood adapts it, before they're willing to adapt it. So it's it takes some time to find thread that needle and find the right people who are passionate about it, who can get it through those early stages. Also, the Hayley Chill books, they're somewhat more political than Jack Carr's books or Reacher books. So it's another challenge because I don't think it's any news to you that the world is already infused with a lot of politics.
Yes.
And so it's Hollywood is the most conservative in the sense of not politics, but conservative in the sense of cautiousness in terms of the subject matters that they tackle.
A couple of questions I usually try to ask all my author guests. Number one, what's the best book that you've read recently?
Oh, geez. I read a lot of nonfiction. I'm always reading nonfiction. I've recently reread, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Franzen. So I read outside of my genre. When I read fiction, I'm kind of reading outside of my genre. And Franzen is an author I always follow. And so I reread Crossroads. I grew up, I was a teenager in the same time period as Crossroads in the middle 70s. And I really loved that book quite a bit.
What book are you looking forward to reading that may be just coming out or coming out soon? Do you have one?
Yeah, I want to read the Cameron Crowe memoir. What is it called? Uncool, I think. I think that's it. Cameron Crowe, was a very young rock journalist who ultimately became a film and writer and director of some really great movies. So again, I think he's writing of a time period that I'm really fascinated, my own, coming of age time period in the 70s.
Advice you'd give to anyone who thinks they want to try to write a thriller novel?
I think what is a good, I think obviously read a lot. And I think, when I was starting out writing ages ago, I was an unabashed imitator. It started out writing in high school, really bad Ernest Hemingway short stories, and in college wrote really bad Charles Bukowski imitation poetry. And in New York, when I graduated from college, I wrote some truly dreadful Sam Shepard style plays. So eventually you find your own voice. So I think, by not being, too hesitant to just kind of imitate the writers that you admire, get that first book, second book, the ones that are mimicking those voices. And I think it gets you into the groove of writing. I don't think that's writing advice that you'll ever, I wanted to come up with something that they haven't been told before. And I think imitation is probably a good way to just get the motor running. It's like priming the pump. And it's, writing is hard, obviously, and to try and just out of the gate, be writing with your very own unique voice that's unlike anyone else's, is a recipe for an unfinished novel.
Chris Hauty's new thriller is called Dead Ringer. It publishes next Tuesday, December the 2nd. And Chris, from one coast to the other, we appreciate your time. It's a really, really fun read. I know folks will really enjoy it. And I'm telling you from experience, wait till the surprise at the end. You will not see it coming. Chris, congratulations on all your success, and thanks for being with me on the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I had a great time chatting.
A big thank you to Chris Hauty for taking time from his busy schedule to join me for this week's podcast. Dead Ringer is his new book. It's a fun read. I hope you check it out when it publishes December the 2nd. You can follow all of Chris's news on his website, chrishauty.com. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow or subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you'd like to see a video version of this podcast, just head over to my YouTube channel. It's John Evans TV. I'm John Evans. We sure do appreciate you joining us for this episode of One-on-One.